Okay, Unit 3, Day 2, here we go. This shouldn't take too long. Should be a nice short video. Okay, so we're going to look at some more cubic graphs and their equations. So number 1 says a cubic function has just two x-intercepts. So it's a cubic function, which means it's a third degree, but we only have two x-intercepts, which means one of them has to be a repeated factor. So we have one at x equals 0. And we have the other one at x equals 6. So we need to write down at least 3 possible equations with these intercepts. All right, so I'm just going to tell you there is an infinite amount. You just start playing around with negative signs. So probably the easiest one is going to be f of x equals. Okay, so we're going to use the factor of x for the x equals 0. And then if x is equal to 6, then this has to be x minus 6. So if we leave it like that, that's just a quadratic function. So we need to add a square somewhere so we can make that our repeated factor. So I need at least 3. I'll probably write down about 6 for you. Okay, so we can do the exact same thing. We're just going to make x squared our repeated factor. So I still have a 0 at x equals 0. In fact, I have 2 of them. And I have 1 at x equals 6. So now we start playing around with just lead coefficients and negative signs. We're just still going to have a cubic function with the same x-intercepts. So I could go back to f of x and just say 2x times x minus 6 squared. Still a cubic function. All I did was stretch it by 2 units, so it'll be a little bit taller. I could go k of x. I could negate h of x. I could do negative 2x times x minus 6 squared. I could do j of x. Let's mess with this one a little bit. Let's just negate the x squared. So negative x squared times x minus 6. So all I'm doing is doing different transformations. I still have the same zeros, and I still have cubic functions. So let's do a play on h of x again. We'll call it m of x. Oh, let's bring the squared back to the 2x. So let's do 2x squared times x minus 6. All right, so there's 6 possibilities. We only had to come up with 3. You could keep going. Just make sure you keep it a cubic function and don't change those zeros. All right, so on the axis, we need to sketch a graph of y equals x plus 2 times x minus 3 times x minus 1. Okay, so I know I have zeros or x-intercepts at x equals negative 2 for the first factor, x equals 3, and x equals 1. I can also call these x-intercepts negative 2, 0, 3, 0, and 1, 0. So I can go ahead and put those on there. So negative 2, 0 would be there, 1, 0 would be there, 3, 0 would be right there. Okay, so from this equation, I can also figure out my y-intercept. So if I let x equals 0, then I have basically, if I plug 0 in here, I have 2 times negative 3 times negative 1. So that's going to be a negative 6 times a negative 1, which will be 0, 6. So I can put 0, 6 there. The other thing I need to know is my in behavior. I get that from my lead term. So if I multiply my x's, I just get x cubed with no coefficient. So that's an odd degree, positive lead coefficient. So my in behavior is up on the left, down on the right. So up on the left, down on the right. Okay, so you'll also find out with the original function that all of those factors occur one time. One is an odd number. So these are all crossing zeros. If there was a multiplicity of 2, or a factor that's repeated with an even number, then it's a bouncing 0. We talked about that earlier on. All right, so this is just a sketch, so I have to connect my in behavior arrows. I have to go through the zeros and the y-intercept. Okay, so I'm going to bring it up here like this. I'm going to come back down, and I'm going to bring it up like that. So I don't have any extra crossing points. I've gone through the y-intercept. I don't really know my maxes and mins. That's a little bit bigger concept than Algebra 2. So we're just sketching with zeros, lead term, in behavior, and the y-intercepts. So it says, show where your graph crosses the x and y axis. I did all that. So now here's a little twist on this one. It says now we're going to write down an equation of a cubic function, so it has to be a third degree. That would give a graph that looks like the one below. And it says, note, it crosses the y-axis at 0, 8. So I have to make sure that that point is on the graph. So if I look at this, I've got 3 negative zeros. And I have in behavior that's up on the right, down on the left, which means my lead term, this is a cubic function, it has to be positive. So I'm just going to keep it a 1, which is going to make it easy. So now I need to write my function. I got to have 3 factors because I have 3 zeros. I'm going to have x, x, and x. These are all going to be negative. I'm sorry, they're all going to have to be positive because my zeros are negative. Okay, so if I have to think about 3 numbers over here that are going to multiply to positive 8, this could be a negative 4, maybe a negative 2, and a negative 1. So let's see if those zeros work. So if x is negative 4, this has to be x plus 4. If I have a 0 at negative 2, this has to be x plus 2 and 1. So if I take 4 times 2 times 1, I get 8. So if I plug in 0 there, I have 0, 8, so that works. And my lead term would be x squared, x to the third. If I multiply just my positive or my first terms. So my in behavior works, everything works out. So that's going to be the function I need. All right, that's the end of day 4, day 1, or day 3, day 1. So enjoy the rest of your day. It was a nice short day of videos.